Hello, and welcome back to another video. This is the 8th episode. Naruto was unfamiliar with luck. And when Naruto gets lucky, it doesn't go well. When Naruto is beaten on a stormy night, something strange happens. Lightning struck Naruto, but he survived. Remember to like and subscribe. Let's get this party started, shall we? Minato's eyes remained closed as the demonic light covered his form. Kurama's booming laugh filled the chamber and he felt himself fading away more and more. Tears started to stream down his cheeks at his failure to protect his own son. After several seconds, Minato slowly opened his eyes at the lack of laughter coming from the nine-tailed beast. The demonic light was no longer present, causing an eerie nature to settle over the sewer. "You always were such a pushover." A heavenly voice, at least to Minato, ranged out. A small smile spread across his face before he quickly turned around and came upon a magnificent sight. There she was, Kushina Uzumaki, with golden chakra chains shooting out of her wrist, wrapped around the limbs of a struggling Kurama. Her blood-red hair hung loosely at her hips and she held a confident smile on her face as she held back the Kyuubi. "I've never been more glad to see you," Minato said. This only worked to increase Kushina's smirk as she pulled on the chains that connected her to the Kyuubi. The beast was forced forward slightly by the force. Minato's smile increased when he saw the flow of demonic chakra had stopped as soon as Kushina's chains wrapped around him. "As much as I want to kiss you now, we have to take care of this problem," Kushina said before turning back towards the Kyuubi. She was instantly set on alarm when she saw a smirk overcome the beast's fierce visage. If she had been just a second earlier, she would have been able to avoid Naruto's fierce attack. Unfortunately she was not. Naruto rammed his shoulder, deep into Kushina's back, throwing her across the room and making her lose control of the chains. Minato looked in shock as his wife skidded across the sewer floor and slammed into the wall. "You don't get it, do you? It's too late. Your son is my vessel and the catalyst of the destruction of your precious village," Kurama said as he stepped further out his cage. His tail swung menacingly behind him as he stared down at the two shocked humans. Naruto was crouched on all fours under him, his body covered in an eight-tailed cloak of demonic chakra. "Minato. We have the sever the connect." Kushina wasn't able to finish her thought before Naruto came charging towards her. She started to backpedal away from the boy but he was faster. He appeared in front of her with his claws ready to rip into her. She threw up her arms for a quick block but he broke right through it with his powerful attack. Kushina was sent flying into the wall once again, blood covering her arms and torso. Minato saw his wife in distress and quickly threw one of his kunai directly at Naruto. The demonized boy managed to catch with his tail before crushing it within his grip. But right before Naruto crushed the kunai, Minato teleported in front of his son with the Rasengan blazing in his hands. He blazed his arm forward, crushing the grinding ball of death against his son's torso. To his surprise, the Rasengan seemed to dissipate immediately. He was forced back several feet when Naruto opened his mouth and released a loud roar. The roar sent the man flying into the air, creating space between Minato and his son. While he was in midair, Kurama lazily swung his tail and sent the man crashing into the wall. Minato managed to throw one of his special kunai and teleport himself from out the wall, just in time too because Kurama's tail impaled the spot where he just was. Kurama readied himself to attack Minato once more with his tails but was stopped when he felt a sudden pressure wrap around his tails. He looked back and saw a bleeding Kushina with her chakra chains wrapped around his tail. He felt the woman give a mighty tug before he was actually sent stumbling back from the force of the pull. He quickly managed to right himself though before swiping his claws at the woman. Kushina jumped just in the nick of time, avoiding certain death. Unfortunately for her, Naruto took that time to re-enter the fight. Naruto appeared right in front of her once again with his claws ready to impale her. She threw up a quick guard and closed her eyes, preparing for the intense pain to shoot through her arms. With her eyes closed, Kushina missed Minato, sending his Hirashin kunai streaking deep into Naruto's flesh and teleporting to his side. The man kicked his own son away before he could impale his wife. He then quickly wrapped his arms around Kushina and safely landed on the ground with her. "Kushina, we have to find some way to stop them. I only have minutes left before my chakra wears out and I know you don't have much longer," Minato stated as his form flickered once again. He let go of Kushina and stared down at the two opposing forms in front of him. Kurama stood on his hind legs, a wide smirk played along his lips as he stared at the two humans. Naruto stood crouched on all fours, his body surrounded by demonic chakra, growling menacingly while staring at his parents. "Go," was all Kurama said before Naruto shot off like a missile towards his parents. Kushina shifted in front of Minato and slammed her palms against the ground, sending a wall of chains towards her own son. The golden, writhing wall of links wrapped completely around Naruto, trapping him. The prison lasted only for a second before Naruto burst through, demonic chakra flowing off him like waves. He continued his wild sprint towards Minato and Kushina. This time Minato took lead, choosing to sprint towards Naruto while Kushina provided backup. Her golden chains kept up with him as he sped towards his son. He flicked his wrist and kunai started to shoot wildly around from his sleeve. Naruto braced himself but was surprised when they only landed around him. Minato disappeared in a yellow flash before briefly appearing next to Naruto. The blonde-haired boy head snapped back as Minato disappeared from his sight. Minato appeared crouched behind Naruto and shot his hand once again to the back of Naruto's head. The boy tried to twist away from the attack but Kushina's chains held him in place. His head was sent flying back forward as Minato disappeared once again. This process continued for a whole minute. Minato flashed in and out of sight, landing random attacks on his son. Kushina held on with her full strength, keeping the boy restrained. After the minute, Minato flashed in next to Kushina. He looked over and nodded to her. She smirked before slamming her wrist onto the ground. Ninja arts, Great Chain Awakening, Kushina said as hundreds of golden chains came shooting from the ground. The chains wrapped around the already restrained boy, restraining him even more. The chains formed into a tight ball, with Naruto directly in the center. Minato nodded before slamming his palms together and pulsing his chakra. Sealing arts, Demonic Suppression, Minato said as Kushina's chains suddenly became littered with seals. The demonic Naruto roared as the seal tags glowed bright with chakra. Kurama watched with an unsettling mirth in his eyes as the seals began to activate. Minato felt himself begin to waver once again and knew he was about to fade out. He turned to his wife before suddenly pulling her into a kiss, for the last time for the rest of eternity. It took almost all Kushina's willpower to not lose control over the chains, but she managed. Tears began to stream down her face as she could feel her husband's lips slowly fading away from hers. After a couple of seconds, Minato was gone. Kushina turned back towards the shining orb of light that contained her son. She could still feel the boy struggling within the ball of chains as the seals attempted to take in his demonic chakra. She felt his signature weakening and smiled at this. Her smile was wiped off her face however when she had to duck under a swipe of one of Kyuubi's tails. She had to quickly jump over another as the demon attempted to take her legs out from under her. While in midair, two of Kurama's tails was sent speeding towards her. She managed to twist her body out of the way of the first one but the second one hit her dead in the chest. She control over the chains slipped and she was sent crashing into the ground. Kushina screamed when one of Kurama's tails pierced through her hand, pinning her to the ground. Her screams increased when another of his tails pierced her other hand. Her feet were next as she was effectively crucified to the ground. Seems familiar, eh? Kurama asked as his other four tails swung menacingly behind him. Kushina grit her teeth as pain coursed through her entire being. Kurama's smirk did nothing to lessen the pain and humiliation she was feeling at the moment. Now you will die by your son's own hands, Kurama stated before lazily flicking one of his free tails towards Kushina. Naruto let out a pained groan as he slowly stalked on all fours towards the downed Kushina. Blood dripped from his body as the demonic chakra burnt and ate away his skin, only for it to reform and burn away again. His eyes were clouded with pure rage and hate as his body approached Kushina. He finally got close enough to her and stood over top of her. His mouth opened wide as a ball condensed chakra appeared in front of it. Tiny orbs of yin and yang chakra slammed into the ball, increasing its mass exponentially. Kushina could do nothing but watch as the tool of her death was literally made right in front of her. Please Naru-chan. Please don't do this. I've seen your memories. This isn't you. Fight it, fight him. Kushina pleaded as Naruto continued to charge his attack. The demonized boy did not seem to hear as he absent-mindedly charged his attack. Kushina sighed before preparing for her last resort. She was hoping this would do more harm than good. I'm sorry Naru-chan, but I can't let him take control of you, Kushina said before slowly closing her eyes. She began to concentrate her chakra. She needed deep concentration for this technique since she didn't have access to her limbs. Hench, she whispered as her body was enveloped in a small cloud of smoke. Kurama watched in curiosity as the cloud of smoke slowly started to drift away. He could still feel that Kushina was pinned under her grip. He was curious to what she had done. The small cloud of smoke slowly drifted away to show a new person seemed to have taken Kushina's place. The woman had lightly tanned skin and brown eyes. Her purple hair was put up into a spiky pineapple shape. She wore a tan overcoat that was ripped and cut up in several places. She wore an orange skirt and a slightly ripped mesh shirt that was also ripped in several places. A snake pendant hung loosely around her neck as her eyes stared up at Naruto. Naruto-kun, why are you doing this? Please don't hurt me, I love you Naruto-kun. The henged Kushina said while perfectly mimicking Anko's voice. Naruto's growling was quickly silenced and he stopped gathering chakra. Kushina, under the Anko henge, watched as the ball of yin and yang chakra slowly started to disappear. She had caught his attention, now to just drive the nail into him. You love me right? You won't hurt me, you wouldn't hurt you Anko-chan right? Kushina said. After this remark the ball of chakra completely disappeared and the demonized Naruto stared down at Kushina. The rage briefly disappeared from his eyes as he stared into Anko's/Kushina's eyes. His bright blue eyes were a sharp contrast from his demonic appearance. "Hey Anko?" Naruto's demonic voice asked. Kushina wanted to almost cry from tricking her son like this but she needed to. "I will not allow this." Kurama screamed as he drove his remaining tails towards Kushina. Her eyes widened and she almost wanted to slap herself at forgetting such a crucial fact. Her heart almost jumped out of her chest as the tails came within a full foot of her. She was surprised, however, when the tail suddenly went completely ridged and stopped in its place. Kurama looked shocked till as he stared at his own tails. He began to grunt and exert himself as he attempted to move his tail. "No, don't hurt her," Naruto said. Kurama looked in shock at the boy before releasing a pulse of his demonic chakra in an attempt to rein in control back from Naruto. Unfortunately for the demonic this seemed to have absolutely zero effect. "Please snap out of this isn't like you. This isn't like my Naruto-kun. I need you back." Kushina pleaded while using Anko's voice. Naruto's eyes flashed back to their bright blueness once again but stayed there. His chakra cloak slowly started to fade away from him. After almost a full minute of Kurama's screams of protest, Naruto's cloak was completely gone. "Anko, I never thought I would see you again. When he showed me your headband, I thought I lost you," Naruto said before swinging his arm into the air. Kurama was forced back into his cage with a flick of Naruto's wrist. The beast began to scream in protest as he slammed himself against the cage. Naruto then wrapped his arms around the henged Kushina. He buried his head into her chest and began to cry. Kushina wrapped her arms around Naruto and allowed her son to cry into her chest. She softly shushed him while petting his head with her hand. "I love you Anko, I love you so much," Naruto said with tears in his eyes. Kushina under her henge pulled back from Naruto before staring into his eyes. "I love you too Naruto-kun. But I need you to promise me to never lose control to that best ever again. Can you please promise me that? For me, for your Anko-chan?" Kushina felt absolutely terrible for using the image of her son's dead lover as guilt to make him do this, but this was how it had to be. "I promise Anko-chan. I don't want to ever hurt you again. Ever again," Naruto said before pulling Kushina back into. The woman smiled before slowly creating a chakra chain with her hand. She slithered the chain up to the gates that contained Kurama. The chain picked up the misplaced tag that had lain on the ground and placed it back against the gate. The chain then glowed a bright yellow before tapping the seal and several seal lit up before the gates were forced closed once again. The chain then wrapped itself around the two most inner bars, securing the gate even more. "I know you want Naruto-kun. I know," Kushina said with a small smile on her face. The smile was wiped off however when she felt her form waver. She was going to fade away soon. Naruto must have sensed this too because a frown now marred his face. "I'm sorry Naruto-kun, but I have to leave soon. I want you to know that I love you, I've always loved you and I always will. I'll be watching over you," Kushina said as his form wavered again. Naruto smiled sadly before nodding and leaning forward. Kushina's eyes almost bulged out of her sockets when she saw that her son was leaning in for a kiss. Panic was painted across her face as her own son attempted to kiss her. She didn't know whether to pull back or just go with it. Though quickly after remembering the amount of love her son had for this girl, she knew what she had to do. She embraced her son and kissed him back. The two remained in that position for several seconds before Kushina's form wavered again. "Goodbye Naruto-kun, when you face the Kyuubi again you'll be alone. You won't be able to control it. I need you to be strong enough to be able to defeat it while it's a full power. I won't be there to help you then, but I can give you something now," Kushina said before placing her hand on Naruto's chest. Naruto watched as a bright yellow emitted from the henged Kushina's hand to his chest. Suddenly a golden chain popped up from under Naruto and wrapped protectively around him. The chain pulsed a bright yellow before dissolving into a golden powder. "I will always be with you Naruto-kun. I love you," Kushina said one more time before completely fading away. Naruto remained sat on his knees staring at the spot where Kushina/Anko once was. His fist slightly clenched as a golden chain appeared in his grasp. The difference between this chains and Kushina. He slowly stood to his feet before looking at the rather quiet Kurama. I couldn't enjoy my time with Anko because of you. You'll pay for this, Naruto said as a countless number of electrified golden chains appeared behind him. Kurama growled before slightly his vision was filled with a sea of chains speeding towards him. Just as Jiraiya passed out, the still demonized Naruto let out the Baijudama. The ball of concentrated demonic chakra was sent spewing out of the boy's mouth. Jiraiya would have been wiped from existence if it wasn't for intervention from Kakashi and Guy. Guy appeared crouched beneath Naruto just as the boy readied himself to release the attack. He pumped his legs with chakra and shot upwards towards Naruto. His fist slammed into the lower jaw of the boy. The skin on his knuckles were burned away immediately, but the attack did his job. The boy's head snapped upwards towards the sky just as he released the attack. The beam of chakra was sent into the school, causing no damage. Kakashi then appeared on the other end of the roof while clutching his wrist. His hands exploded in the bright ray of lightning chakra. The sounds of chirping birds filled the air as Kakashi disappeared from sight. He reappeared right in front of Naruto with his fist drawn back. He let out a roar and punched his fist forward, embedding it into Naruto's stomach. Kakashi was immediately thrown back by a massive pulse of demonic chakra. He threw his head to the sky and released a loud roar as the roof was enveloped with the corrosive, deadly, red chakra of the Kyuubi. Guy quickly picked up the battered bodies of Jiraiya and jumped off the roof, only a second before Naruto's form was overtaken by the chakra. The Konoha nin and the remaining invasion force looked towards the bright beam of red light on top of the arena roof. Some of the more veteran ninja of Konoha froze in shock as flashbacks from the Kyuubi's invasion all those years ago came back to mind. The feeling dread and anger was even more intense now, and it took most of the more fledgling ninja all their willpower to not faint from the intense feeling of chakra. The feeling of dread hung in the air for several seconds before it slowly began to dissipate. The red beam slowly disappeared and all the inhabitants of Konoha, welcomed or not welcomed, let out a collective sigh. The red demonic chakra completely disappeared to show Naruto's form, standing and panting on the roof. The skin along his whole entire body was burned tremendously, exposing the muscle and even the bones in some area. Every article of clothing was completely gone, also exposing his naked body to the world. His skin and muscle were slowly growing back as he stood panting on the roof. He slowly swiveled his head and took in his surroundings. The roof was destroyed. It was only by the grace of Jiraiya's reinforcement seals that it was still standing. The entire roof was filled with holes and was missing massive portions of itself. The parts that were still remaining were scorched black, most likely from a fire or lightning jutsu. Naruto was snapped out of his observation when he heard several quiet thuds impact on the roof. He turned around and saw Kakashi, Guy and an entire squad of Anbu standing behind him. The group of Anbu was led by tiger-masked Anbu. "Naruto, are you there?" Kakashi asked tentatively. Naruto turned to his sensei and nodded. The squad of Anbu did not relax, however. If even they tensed even more, as if they were preparing to attack any second now. "We're going to have to take you in now, Naruto. Just please calm." Kakashi's voice slowly started to lose focus as Naruto's eyelids found themselves getting closer and closer together. After several seconds, Naruto fell backwards unconscious on the roof. "He must be banished," a rather extravagantly dressed man shouted in the council room. An uproar of approval followed his outburst as several of the civilian council members and even some of the more irrational members of the ninja council agreed. The more rational members of the council, however, disagreed. It had been a full day since the invasion by Suna and the Sound Nin. The enemy ninja had been successfully repelled and incapacitated. Several ninja were taken prison, including the previous Kazekage's children. Unfortunately, Konoha's strife did not end there. When Naruto lost control of the Kyuubi, fear was struck into the hearts of the villagers once again. Tension quickly rose through the village as they began to call for Naruto's death at his apparent lack of control when it came to Kurama. "We cannot just banish him. He is our Jinchuriki, the strongest one in all the elemental nations. He is our only defense against Iwa or Kumo in our weakened state. To banish or even execute him would be signing our own death warrant," Shikukanaru stated with a small sigh while slumped in his chair. Several of the other ninja clans nodded in silent agreement while the opposing force were silenced by the logic behind the situation. "What are we supposed to do then? He almost killed Jiraiya. The villagers are calling for his blood at this very moment. Action must be taken to appease the civilians or we'll have a civil war on our hands. We don't even have a Hokage," another one of the civilian council members stated. A small murmur of agreement was sent rippling through the room. Even the ninja council, who usually greatly disagreed with the civilian council, agreed with them on this point. The tension in the village was quickly building up to a breaking point. The hospital that contained Naruto was constantly surrounded by a mob of paranoid and angry villagers demanding his blood. There had already been over 20 attempts on his life. A full squad of Anbu had to be used to protect the hospital and Naruto. I say we just lock the boy up. Only use him in great times of emergency and urgency. A man shouted out. The council was once again sent into a buzz as they discussed the capability of the idea. Their rambling was quickly silenced however when the door of the council room slowly swung open. Jiraiya looked around at all the stunned faces of the council before slowly limping his way into the room. His right arm was set into a sling while his head was wrapped by medical gauze. His left leg was covered in a cast and his torso was also wrapped. Jiraiya-sama. We did not expect you to be up and active this early, Hiyashi said respectfully. Jiraiya grinned before limping his way to the center of the room. I've taken worse beaten from Tsunade. This was nothing. Jiraiya demonstrated this by flexing his leg. The cast shattered from the force of it, revealing that Jiraiya's leg was perfectly fine. Just a small demonstration on how much of a legendary ninja he truly was. As for Naruto, I think I have a solution that will solve both of your problems and please the villagers and the council itself. This statement perked the curiosity of the council. They beckoned for the man to continue and he did just that. I propose that I take the boy on a training trip to teach him how to control the Kyuubi. With the toads and their transportation techniques we will always be on call for when any emergencies so you still have your weapon to defend Konoha. And if he loses control again, I prepared several restriction seals that will be able to instantly seal away his demonic chakra temporarily, Jiraiya said with a small smile. The council thought over his proposal and could find no flaw in it. Naruto would be sent out of the village, appeasing the villagers and possibly stopping a civil war. He would also learn how to control the Kyuubi, making him an even greater asset to Konoha. What about the Hokage position? One of the counselors spoke up. Jiraiya smirked before opening his mouth to speak again. I think it's time for me to pay a visit to the Slug Princess. Naruto was in a very interesting situation at the moment. He was sitting, bare-chested in the middle of a hospital room. His wrists were covered in iron cuffs that were connected to iron chains. The iron chains were littered with a multitude of seal tags. The floor of the hospital room was completely covered in an array of seal designs. Naruto attempted to lift his arm but was met by heavy resistance from the iron chain. The seal tag glowed a bright yellow before Naruto's hand was forced down to the ground. I'm going to finish what I started when I see that pervert. Naruto grumbled as he stared up at the ceiling. His attention was brought to the door when he heard it slowly creak open. Hey brat. Good to see you up and running again. Well, not really running but you get what I mean, Jiraiya said with a grin plastered across his face. Naruto growled at the man joking at his predicament. I know you want to get out here so I have an idea for you. This statement perked Naruto's curiosity also, but he wouldn't allow the pervert to know. He kept a blank face and just stared into the man's eyes. How would you like to go find our next Hokage? I'm going to kill you, Naruto stated with such certainty and intensity that Jiraiya actually felt fear for his life at first. That fear was only present for a split second before the Toad Sanin laughed off the threat. You're 100 years too young to try to kill me brat, Jiraiya said as he looked around Naruto's apartment. The boy had just been recently admitted from the hospital and was now packing for their trip. He had several sealing scrolls already attached to his hip as he went around the house sealing anything of importance in the other sealing scrolls. The door to the house had a small stack of bodies, lying dead and crisp before it. Jiraiya had almost become part of that stack when he reached out for the doorknob, without noticing the crazy amount of seals etched into the door and the knob. The two had been in the house for the past 10 minutes and Jiraiya noticed something weird about Naruto. He tended to avoid certain parts and spots in the apartment, even though the man could tell that valuables were still being held in there. A look of pain would briefly cross his face before he would instantly turn around and walk away from that spot. Jiraiya swore he had almost caught the boy crying over a sweater that had lain on the floor. Though in the end, Jiraiya decided instead to not push the matter and let the boy handle it himself. If he really needed his help, he would step in. The trip here had been rather interesting. Jiraiya informed Naruto of the riot that was taking place just in front of the hospital and asked if he wanted to roof jump to his apartment. To his surprise, the boy refused and said he wanted to walk out the front door, directly in front of the mob. The second his spiky blonde bush of hair peeked out from behind the hospital door, the mob was thrown into a frenzy. A call for his death was ringing through the air as the civilians attempted to overpower the squad of Anbu that were holding him back. When the civilians realized they couldn't overpower the trained ninja, they began to throw whatever they could reach at the boy. Bottles, shoes, sticks, clubs, were just a few of the objects that were sent in Naruto's direction. But to the civilians' surprise, Not a single one of their projectiles even came close to touching Naruto. When the objects got within a foot of Naruto, he would merely raise his fingers and send a small, concentrated bolt of lightning chakra towards the object. The object would almost be completely vaporized on the spot, only leaving a small cloud of ashes to slowly drift to the ground. The villagers continued to uselessly volley objects for several minutes before Naruto accidentally sent a shot towards the foot of a villager, scorching the ground black and vaporizing a small chunk of his sandal. After that, the villagers quickly got the message and dispersed. And now we find a very irate Naruto standing next to an amused Jiraiya. Naruto was free of any cargo, sealing all of his objects, including his other sealing scrolls, inside of his jacket. Jiraiya was the same, except for the small book and pencil in his hands. I'm guessing that at least half of this trip will be you doing your research while I fend for myself? Naruto asked while looking through the gates that led out of Konoha. After several seconds without an answer, Naruto turned to Jiraiya to see what was taking him so long to answer such a simple question. When he saw his supposed sensei staring at the ass of a passing female, Naruto had to let out a small groan. His groan increased in volume when he heard the man let out a perverted giggle before scribbling something down in his notebook. "You're such a shameless, hopeless, disgusting pervert," Naruto said while shaking his head. Jiraiya turned to him, not before wiping his nose of a stray streak of blood, and addressed his wayward student. "Being a pervert is not a bad thing. Being a pervert is being appreciative of the opposite sex body. For me, being a pervert is taking the time out of my day to admire the breast and asses of all women I think fit. The curve of the breast, ass's tone, shape of the hips, fullness of the lips. From a single glance I can tell the measurements of a female. It is not a gift, but a curse that I must live with for the rest of my life. My perversion is my inspiration to get out of bed every single day. Just because you swing for the other team doesn't mean you can hate on my art," Jiraiya stated while walking out of the gates of Konoha. Not a single person had been present to send them off. That was probably for the best because if the villagers caught wind that Naruto had left, a larger stack of bodies would be waiting for him when he got home. "Do not lump an appreciation of the female body with your perverted acts, asshole. I can appreciate the female body, just not while gawking and panting like a mutt. A simple glance is all it takes. You, on the other hand, go out your way to peep on girls while they are at their most vulnerable state. Which, I find creepy and disgusting," Naruto finished as he followed Jiraiya. The man huffed before turning his head away from his student. The boy would soon taste the fruits of perversion, one way or the other. The two continued traveling side by side for several hours in silence. At one point, Jiraiya had pulled out a scroll and buried his nose into it, effectively cutting off any chances of starting a conversation with him. Naruto did not complain because he honestly did not feel like talking with the man at the moment. Nightfall had quickly settled in and Jiraiya finally decided to make camp. The two quickly unsealed their tents before pitching them. When it came time to make a fire, the two were at a dilemma. "Go and get some firewood," Jiraiya ordered before turning back towards his tent. His retreat was interrupted however when he felt something hard slam into the back of his head. He turned and saw Naruto holding several medium-sized rocks in his hand. "Why don't you go and get some firewood, sensei? After all, I don't have as much stamina as you and am exhausted from the journey," Naruto said in a condescending tone. Jiraiya grumbled before picking up a rock and beaming it towards Naruto's head. The boy merely shifted his head and let the rock fly past him harmlessly. "Because I said do it. No more questions, just do it," Jiraiya said before quickly retreating into his tent, just in time too, as a hail of rocks rained upon his previous position. Naruto smirked before turning around and walking into the forest. He walked for several minutes before he felt that he was a sizable distance away from Jiraiya. He started to go through a small chain of hand signs before slamming his hands on the ground. A small seal array spread from his hands to the ground before suddenly smoke erupted around him. Naruto waited several seconds in the smoke for it to clear with his hands behind his back and a smirk placed on his face. After several seconds, Naruto could hear the soft crunch of dead leaves directly in front of him. "Naruto-sama. It's such a pleasure to see you again," a female voice said from within the smoke. A soft breeze rolled through the clearing that Naruto was occupying, taking the smoke along with it and exposing the creature Naruto had summoned. Though to be honest, the midnight black fur the creature was covered it made it almost impossible for anyone to spot her. Fortunately for her, Naruto had years of experience in doing so. "It's a pleasure to see you too, Mayanoka. How is everyone doing back home?" Naruto said. Yes, Naruto had been to the summoning realm of the Panthers. He had personally walked on the now home base for the Majestic Hunters. He had spent many a nights there, honing his skills in stealth and speed with the Panthers. He had formed bonds and companionship with the Panthers, old and young. To him, the Panthers' summoning realm was almost like a second home for him. "Everyone is fine, Naruto-sama. When Usama returned and told us of your fight with him, the clan was almost sent into a frenzy at losing the chance to see their summoner in action. Fortunately, Usama had managed to record it and calm everyone." Naruto let out a laugh at this. "That's good to hear," Naruto said while watching Mayunoka. He felt her golden eyes pierce into his, giving him a message without her having to say anything. "Will you be ready for what's coming next, Naruto-sama? We of the Panther clan need to be absolutely sure of where your loyalty lies," Mayunoka asked. Naruto chuckled at this before throwing the hood of his jacket on his head. His face was instantly hidden from sight and only his bright blue eyes were present to the world. "My loyalty lies with those who fed me, those who clothed me, those who protected and served me. The Panther clan has nothing to worry about. This is not my duty as a summoner, but my honor," Naruto said. Mayunoka smirked at this before bowing her head and turning. Her tail swung hypnotically behind her as she began to walk out of the clearing. "I know, Naruto-sama. And I know that with you on our side, we can't and will not fail," Mayunoka said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. Naruto grinned as her previous position before disappearing with a burst of speed. Preparations needed to be taken. "What the hell do you mean you don't want to learn it?" Jiraiya yelled in shock. Naruto growled at the man before pressing his fingers against his temples. He should have known the man would have this reaction. "Do you hate your father, brat? Look, I know he sealed the QB inside of you, but it was for the good of the village. You shouldn't let this blind hatred stop you from being." Jiraiya was cut off when a single bolt of lightning struck his hair, setting it on fire. He began to comically roll around on the dirt path, attempting to put out the flames that were ravaging his hair. After several minutes of rolling, screaming and yelling, Jiraiya had managed to put his hair out and was now glaring at Naruto. Luckily for him, his hair did not take that much damage from the flames. "Now that you have shut up, I can explain something to you. I do realize that the Rasengan is a very powerful technique. It is my father's legacy and therefore my inheritance. But I do not want to rely on my father's move and techniques to become a shinobi. If one day I am in the bingo books, I would rather my title not be a carbon copy of my father's. My own skills will get me far in this world, not his." Jiraiya looked at the boy for several seconds before chuckling softly and shaking his head. He placed his hand on Naruto's head to pat his hair but instantly had to recoil as he was shocked the very second his skin came in contact with Naruto. He held his numb hand with a hurt expression on his face while Naruto continued to walk, albeit now with a small smirk on his face. "He is exactly like you two combined. What have you unleashed upon the world?" Jiraiya said while looking up at the sky. After several seconds of reminiscing, he quickly jogged his way back up to Naruto. The two traveled in silence for several minutes before Naruto opened his mouth. "Who are we looking for anyway? You never mentioned it when we were exiting Konoha. You were too focused on the ass of that woman we saw walk by," Naruto said. Jiraiya released a small perverted giggle when he thought about the woman. His face quickly turned serious though as he turned to Naruto. "Konoha is in need of a strong leader. A leader that people can follow behind and feel safe. Unfortunately I cannot do so, due to my spy network. And to be honest I do not trust anyone other than the person we are looking for to do the job. She was my teammate. She battled beside me when I fought Hanzo. She was given the same moniker as me as well. She is Tsunade, the slug Sanin." Jiraiya finished. Naruto, for once, actually looked interested while Jiraiya talked about a female. "And she has the biggest pair of tits you have ever seen. And there goes all that interest." Naruto groaned as Jiraiya once again slipped into his perverted fantasies, only this time it was about his rather busty teammate. Naruto decided it was best to just ignore the man from now on. The two were entering a town called Danzaku Town. This town was rather famous for its extravagant bars and gambling halls. Trillions of yen had been lost in the gamble halls of Danzaku. Thousands of men had also had to take the stumble of shame back to their house after overdrinking at the bars. The town was one of the most influential and economically powerful towns in Fire Country. And it was the perfect place to find their missing future Hokage. It was a well-known fact that Tsunade was a legendary gambler and drinker. Her knowledge in medical ninjutsu and anatomy made it possible for her to burn off the alcohol faster than she was taking it in. It was possible that no matter how much she drank, she would never get drunk. The only possible way for her to get drunk was to make her consume alcohol faster than she could burn it off. An almost impossible task but still manageable. Her aptitude at gambling on the other hand was rather lacking. Actually lacking wouldn't even be an appropriate word for her abilities. Her losing streak was legendary. It was the reason her nickname was the legendary sucker. She would lose at almost every single game she played at. The only time she would win was when something bad was about to happen. The ultimate form of bad luck, and some may call her the ultimate bad luckster. The two ninja entered a bar and took a seat in a booth. Jiraiya ordered them both sake, ignoring Naruto's protest in the process. Naruto huffed and let it slide as it looked like the man was about to speak. So Brad, as you know, Danzaku is a rather large town, actually one of the biggest towns in all of Fire Country. Tsunade is bound to be somewhere in this district. So here's the plan. Once we're finished at this bar, you'll go get us a hotel room. Two actually, just in case I have some company. Naruto groaned at this. While you're doing that, I'll go pick up some information from some of my colleagues. Naruto instantly wanted to protest at this, figuring colleagues was just another way for Jiraiya to say stripper, but decided not to in the end. He knew that he could not stop the man. Whether he was aware of his actions or not, Jiraiya would do what he wanted. Naruto was powerful, but he was not at the level of a Sannin. Fine, Naruto said as a waiter placed 2 bottles of sake in front of them. Naruto closed his eyes and took the bottle of sake into his hands, not before hearing a small pack which was instantly followed by a loud scream of pain. Naruto opened his eyes and saw the waiter rubbing her ass while glaring at Jiraiya, who was now clutching his balls in pain. Naruto shook his head before uncorking the bottle of sake and downing it, foregoing the dish that came along with the bottle. The burning sensation of the alcohol against his throat was actually very soothing. It helped drown out the background noises of Jiraiya, who was most likely getting slapped again. Naruto let out a small sigh as his stomach seemed to burn with a harsh intensity. The burning pit that was his stomach was actually a welcome feeling to the boy. He allowed his eyes to travel up and saw Jiraiya had a red mark that was oddly shaped like a hand placed upon his cheek. The same waiter from before was now staring at Jiraiya with an even more intense look while still rubbing her ass. The man shook his head before grabbing the bottle of sake and quickly downing it. "I'll catch you later, Gaki. Remember, find a hotel room." "I'll find you later," Jiraiya said with a wink before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Naruto looked at that spot for several seconds before looking back at the table. He then looked back at the spot before staring back at the table. "That fucker left me to pay," Naruto said before sighing. He quickly dug into his pocket before putting the appropriate amount of money on the table, plus a rather large tip for all the trouble Jiraiya had caused the waitress, stood up and left. Naruto wandered the streets of Danzaku for almost half an hour in his attempt to find a suitable hotel for the two. He had run by several sleazy, rundown motels that looked more fit to be whorehouses than hotels. Once the 30 minutes were up, the boy found it appropriate to take a break and get a bite to eat. After finding a building that was actually a restaurant instead of a strip club or a casino, Naruto found himself a booth and took a seat. He quickly got a menu from a waiter and began to look over it absent-mindedly. Naruto was about to make his decision for his dinner when suddenly he heard the doors of the restaurant slam open. He peeked his head up to see the cause of the commotion and was stunned. Standing right there was the objective of his mission. Her golden blonde hair hung loosely in the ponytails. A purple diamond could be barely made out on her forehead. Her eyes were hazel and clouded with a slight haze of drunkenness. She wore a green haori that did little to hide her rather large bust. Standing beside her was a woman that was comparatively less beautiful but still attractiveness. She had straight, shoulder-length hair that was extremely black. She wore a dark blue kimono and was holding a pig in her arms. "Tsunade-sama, don't you think it would be best to save our Winnie?" The woman trailed off as Tsunade flippantly ignored her and brashly walked up to the bar. In her hands was a rather large suitcase, which she laid on the bar. She clicked open the suitcase and the bartender's eyes widened to an almost comical appearance. "Don't stop sending the drinks until I say so." The man merely nodded before rushing back behind the bar and beginning to make drinks at an almost blinding pace. Within the first 30 seconds, Tsunade had 2 drinks in front of her. Jiraiya wasn't joking when he said she could hold her liquor. Naruto thought while watching the woman down several drinks all at once. He sighed before putting some money on the table before getting up and walking towards her table. Tsunade was having a pretty shitty day so far. She started the day off hungry and in the need of alcohol, but her naggy assistant hid her money. After an hour of interrogation and threatening, Shizune finally gave up which scroll the money was hidden in. Tsunade immediately took that money and went on a gambling spree. Her luck started off shitty as usual, losing over 1,000,000 yen in under 2 hours. After being kicked off the table by a dealer that stated she had lost too much money, "Just go home now," she immediately found her way to a bar and began drinking her fill. Eventually though Shizune found her and extracted her from the rather comfortable bar stoolie. Luckily she was able to slip away from her rather dogmatic assistant to another casino. She immediately went to a poker table and bet the remainder of her money on a hand. After several tense minutes, she actually had won. She immediately jumped up, swiped up all the chips placed on the table and celebrated. She then turned the chips in for money before walking out of the casino. It only took a full minute for reality to hit her again. Depression settled in as she looked at the suitcase filled with money with disdain. She didn't even notice when Shizune ran up next to her and began to berate her for running off. Instead she just slowly found her way to a bar, sat down in a chair by the bar and began to order drink after drink. And this is where we currently find her. "Tsunade-sama, I really think we should save some of the money up," Shizune said with concern laced in her voice as she watched her master through back chug several beers. Tsunade swallowed the last bit of beer before turning to her assistant. "Do you realize what this suitcase mean?" Tsunade said while holding the suitcase up. "I actually won. I never win unless something bad is about to happen. And I don't want to be sober to watch it happen," Tsunade said before barking at the bartender to send her more drinks. Shizune sighed before looking around the bar, temporarily giving up on convincing her master. Her eyes scanned the occupants of the bar, not noticing anyone of importance or interest. Suddenly her eyes fell upon someone that caught her interest. He was sitting at a table alone, slowly drinking a bottle of sake with his eyes closed. He was adorned in clothes that were blending in with the surrounding, which gave him the presence of a holy man. His bright blonde hair stood out among the sea of brunettes that made up the crowd. His eyes suddenly snapped open and he looked straight towards him. Shizune immediately looked away with a slight blush of embarrassment at being caught. She slowly looked back and saw the young man still looking at her. She watched him sigh before placing money on the table and walking towards her. "Tsunade-sama." Shizune shook the shoulder of her master to try and catch her attention. Tsunade merely shrugged the hand off her shoulder and continued drinking. Shizune sighed before warily watching as the young blonde man sat down next to her master. "I'm guessing that you're Tsunade-senju?" the young man said in a smooth voice. Tsunade blinked once before turning to face the next to her. Her eyes narrowed as she put her alcohol down. "I am she. What do you want, brat?" Tsunade said. The blonde man smiled before clapping his hands together. "Good. This mission is going to be a lot easier than I thought," the young man said before standing. Tsunade's and Shizune's eyes followed him up as he stood before them. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki and I am a Ganin from Konoha. By the powers of the collected members of the council, I hereby order you back to Konoha for the position of Hokage," Naruto said with a smile on his face. Shizune and Tsunade's face twisted into shock at the news they just received. On the other hand, Naruto just looked them straight in the eyes before continuing. "And please don't ask how I'm still a Ganin. I completely humiliated both of my opponents then helped defend the village from a fucking demon. Well, I did sort of destroy half the Chunin arena and brutally slaughter half of an Anbu squad. I guess that could have changed the minds of a lot of people," Naruto said the last two sentences mentally, while giving a shrug. He focused back on the pair standing in front of him and saw Tsunade now had a rather pissed off look on her face. "Who the hell gave those old farts the authority to order me around? And who the hell are you, trying to force me back?" Tsunade said while getting in Naruto's face. He frowned before taking a step back and holding his hands up. She better not piss him off. "Look lady, I'm just following orders. I don't like the old fucks on the council either but we are in the need of an Hokage and you are apparently the only person who can do it," Naruto said. Tsunade growled before turning back to her sake. "You can tell everyone on the council, including my senile former sensei, that I said no. I'm not taking orders from them or any green-nosed, fresh out of the academy, deadweight genin," Tsunade said while bringing the bottle of alcohol back to her lips. She was taken by surprise however when the bottle in her hand suddenly cracked into thousands of shards, sending alcohol and glass spraying across her. She looked over and saw Naruto standing next to her with his fingers stretched out. "First of all, do not address Hokage-sama like that. He died protecting this village and I will not have his image be defiled by some drunken, run-down, blonde bitch. Second of all, don't act as if you know me. I've been through a lot of shit to get to this point of my life. I'm less dead weight than those implanted sacks of jello stitched into your chest. Now get the fuck out of the chair so we can find my idiot sensei and get back to Konoha," Naruto said. Every single voice in the bar silenced when Naruto started to insult the legendary blonde-haired Sannin. A drop of sake could be heard falling to the ground in the silence that permeated through the bar. "What the hell did you just say?" Tsunade stood up from her stool and got back into Naruto's face. The woman was at even height with the boy, allowing the two to stand eye to eye. "You heard me, you blonde-haired bitch? Or are you so old that your hearing is going out? Naruto said with a cocky smirk. Tsunade growled at him before gesturing towards the entrance of the bar. "Do you want to take this outside, brat, so I don't have to embarrass you in front of all these people?" Tsunade said with a smirk on his face. Naruto snorted before stepping aside. "Sure. But don't forget your cane though. Wouldn't want you breaking your hip before the match even starts," Naruto said while walking towards the door. Tsunade growled before stomping behind Naruto. The two blonde-haired ninjas stepped outside of the bar and into the deserted streets. Naruto slowly strolled the other side of the pathway before turning and facing Tsunade. The blonde-haired woman stood growling on the other side of the street. Her assistant stood anxiously next to her, clutching the pig to her chest rather tightly at the moment. "I'm going to beat your ass with only one finger," Tsunade said while holding up one finger. Naruto shrugged before putting his hands into his pockets and staring at the overly confident woman. Silence filled the streets as the two shinobi faced each other. "Are you just going to sit there or?" Tsunade's sentence was interrupted when Naruto suddenly disappeared then reappeared in front of her. She had to bend her back to an almost inhumanely possible curve to avoid a sweeping kick from an airborne Naruto. As soon as his feet touched the ground, he disappeared once again and reappeared in his previous position. "I'm surprised an old woman like you can bend. I bet your back will be sore in the morning though," Naruto said with a smirk. Tsunade growled before taking off at fast speeds towards the blonde boy. Naruto stood with his hands in his pockets, merely watching as a legendary ninja rushed towards him. Tsunade appeared in front of him in almost an instant with her finger poised to strike. The woman grinned before slamming her rigid digit into the ground right in front of Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened just before he was forced to jump as the ground before him splintered into dozens of pieces. In midair he watched as a shockwave ripped through the ground and tore the street up below him. He slowly floated down to the ground where he was immediately on the defensive from an assault by Tsunade. His was forced to pivot on his right foot and pull his body away, lest he suffer from one of the vicious finger assaults from the crazed blonde woman. He felt the air rush by his face as the woman's surprisingly well-kept fingernail barely missed his shoulder. He was then forced to quickly drop to the ground as she pivoted on her foot and sent her finger rushing towards his head. "Is that all you can do? A couple of seconds ago you were all talk. Now I haven't heard a single peep from you," Tsunade said as she continued to thrust her finger towards the boy. Naruto deftly dodged each of her strikes, albeit by the skin of his teeth. The blonde-haired woman was slowly pushing the boy's back against a wall and he knew it. "Does the little boy trying to play shinobi want to quit?" Tsunade said. Naruto growled and backpedaled to dodge another strike, only to find his back pressed against a wall. He looked at the smirking visage of the legendary medic standing before him and felt rage building up inside of him. "Time for the little baby to go nighty-nighty. When you wake up, tell my idiot of a teammate I said no," Tsunade said while thrusting her finger towards Naruto's forward head. Naruto let out a loud growl before snapping his right arm up. His hand wrapped around Tsunade's finger, effectively stopping it in its track. Naruto's arms were bulging with tensed muscles and covered in a light blue aura. "You're not the only one who can augment their strength," Naruto said as a wild grin. He shifted his right foot forward and bent forward slightly. He cocked back his left arm and sent it flying into Tsunade's gut. A glob of blood came shooting out of her mouth and she folded onto Naruto's fist. A harsh wind emitted from their position before Tsunade was sent rocketing across the street. Her coat was left in the dust as the rest of her body crashed into the wall of a building. Shizune watched in shock as Naruto stood with his outstretched, now covered in a thick layer of lightning chakra. "I know you're not dead. I bet with your medical knowledge, you're already completely healed," Naruto said while settling himself back into a relaxed stance. His observation was correct when the debris around her exploded. She emerged from the pile of rubble, covered in dust and rather pissed off. "Fuck using one finger, I'm going to end your existence, you brat," Tsunade said before disappearing in a massive burst of speed. Naruto grinned before calmly closing his eyes and letting his chakra explode around him. He allowed his chakra to saturate the air, creating a natural barrier around him. The hood of his jacket started to levitate, winning its battle against gravity. Tsunade reappeared in front of Naruto with her fist cocked back, ready to unleash a devastating blow onto Naruto. Naruto's eyes sprung open and he jumped into action. Tsunade's fist came screeching towards his face as he shot his hand up to intercept the blow. Tsunade's fist slammed into Naruto's palm, causing a massive shock wave to originate from their position. A cloud of dust was thrown into the air, obscuring the two from the outside world. The pig in Shizune's arms started to squeal loudly in fear of its master's condition. Shizune herself was on edge, wondering if they would ever be able to return to Konoha after Tsunade murdered a genin. No genin would have possibly survived that attack. The dust cloud slowly faded out, much to the relief of the pig and Shizune. Shizune squinted her eyes to see if the genin was now just a splatter on the ground. To her surprise, however, it was the exact opposite. Naruto stood still in the same position, with his arm outstretched, clutching Tsunade's fist in his grip. The area under his fingernails were leaking blood and his arms were bulging to an extreme level. A confident smile played around his lips as he stared at the shocked face of Tsunade. Never underestimate him. Naruto was forced to jump back from a hail of kunai. Tsunade reacted quicker, pulling her fist out of Naruto's surprisingly strong grip and jumped to the other side of the street. The two stared at each other, wondering where the hell they came from. Coo. Look what we have here, a voice said from the other end of the street. Tsunade and Naruto's heart froze at the sound of the snake-like voice. They slowly twisted their head to confront the owner of the voice. He stood at the other end of the street, his sickly pale skin gleaming in the sunlight. His arms were hanging by his side, wrapped in several layers of medical gauze. His black hair stood out against the texture of his skin. Standing to his side was his ever-faithful assistant, Kabuto. My two favorite people in the world, Orochimaru hissed out with a malicious delight. Jiraiya felt a hand slowly caress his thigh as he stared at the woman in front of him. His years of shinobi discipline was the only thing that was saving him from releasing one his of patented perverted giggles at the soft and dainty fingers that were slowly creeping their way up his thigh. Unfortunately for his perverted tendencies, he didn't have the time to indulge in them. It's such a pleasure to see you again, Jiraiya-kun. A sultry voice rang out from the other side of the table. The voice was smooth and seductive, enough to send shivers down the spine of many strong men. But Jiraiya knew the fact that the woman sitting across from him was old enough to be his mother plus some years. Tsunade wasn't the only one who knew how to hide her age. It's nice to see you too, Yuma-san. I see you have been keeping care of the girls, Jiraiya said as the young woman to his right let out a small giggle as she continued to slowly work her hand up his thigh. Yuma smiled and nodded before raising a small cigar to her lips and sucking in a puff of smoke. She slowly lowered the cigar from her lips before blowing the smoke from her mouth into the air. I can sense you don't have much time, so I'll make this quick, Yuma said before sliding a scroll across the table. Jiraiya caught it in his hands as Yuma started to explain its content. As you know, the organization you have been interested in, Akatsuki, has been rather docile for the past couple of years. Even though the group is made out of S-ranked missing nin, they have yet to do any nuisance. At least until recently, they have begun to hunt for bounties, the biggest they can find. They've even begun to take mission from some of the major villages. Particularly Iwa. I have yet to find out their motives, but they're definitely up to something, Yuma said as Jiraiya shifted through the file. He nodded his head before looking up to Yuma. Thank you for the information, Yuma-san. It's always a pleasure working with you, Jiraiya said while standing up, earning him a cute moan of disappointment from the girl that was inches away from creeping her hand into his pants. It's all my pleasure, Raccoon. Make sure to visit, hopefully longer next time, Yuma said with a seductive smile on her face. Jiraiya had to resist the urge to stay longer just to test the woman's resolve. Fortunately, this wasn't the first time Yuma had offered, so he had become quite used to it. Of course, Jiraiya said before turning his back to her and walking out of the room. He slowly began to trot his way out of the building while looking through the scroll Yuma had given him. I still need more information. A group of S-class ninja is nothing to ignore. I need to be prepared for anything at this point. Even Itachi does not know of their motives. Jiraiya thought to himself. His thoughts were interrupted when he felt the ground rumble underneath him. He saw a giant cloud of smoke rise into the air and saw a sight that almost made his blood run cold. Manda, Jiraiya said out loud in clear shock. He quickly sealed the scroll into his own personal sealing tag and shot off towards the giant snake. It was time for him to face his old teammate. Are those looks of hatred for me? Kukaku, I feel honored, Orochimaru said as he stared into Naruto's eyes. The boy's fists were clenched so tightly that a steady stream of blood was flowing from them. Large amounts of sparks were flying from his skin as he stared at the man. From what I can see on the remains of the stadium, I can tell that you enjoyed my little gift. You should have seen the look on that little girl's face when I told her what she was going to be used for. Though I couldn't particularly tell if she was paying attention, my men did quite a number on her. They always play with their toys so roughly, Orochimaru stated while shaking his head in mock disappointment. He stopped shaking his head, however, when he felt one of the strongest chakra he ever felt overcome his form. Tsunade actually had to jump back from Naruto when she felt a sharp increase of his chakra. If she had stayed for a second more, her whole body would have been fried from the large amounts of lightning chakra that Naruto was giving off. A visible aura was forming around him as he stared at Orochimaru. I must not lose control. I must not lose control. I must not lose control, Naruto said in his head over and over. No matter how many times he repeated this, his chakra output never seemed to decrease. Orochimaru. Tsunade finally spoke. The snake-like man turned his head to his busty blonde teammate with a sickening smile on his face. His tongue slowly snaked out of his mouth and licked his lips almost seductively while staring at his ex-teammate. Do not think I forgot about you, Tsunade-chan. Your grandfather and uncle were so happy when they heard their little Su-chan had become an alcoholic gambler. They absolutely enjoyed hearing your title, the legendary sucker. Orochimaru happily hissed out. Tsunade's anger quickly turned into shock when she heard that Orochimaru had talked to her grandfather. Her mind quickly connected the dots and her shock quickly transformed back into anger. How dare you defile their souls by using that jutsu? You have gone too far this time, Tsunade shouted while launching herself towards Orochimaru. The Sannin was prepared for this and launched himself towards Tsunade. The two quickly began to close the distance between each other, Tsunade's fist blazing with chakra and Orochimaru's kusanagi ready to skewer Tsunade. The two never reached each other. A blue blur shot past Tsunade and went right into Orochimaru. Neither of the two Sannin were prepared for Naruto's intervention. The blonde-haired boy's fist smacked against Orochimaru's cheek, stopping the man's momentum and reversing it. He was sent flying across the clearing, ripping up large amounts of dirt and creating a trench. Blood was sent flying through the air. He's mine. Tsunade heard Naruto whisper before he once again disappeared from her sight. She wanted to tell him no, but her eyes then locked with the trail of the blood which led to Orochimaru. Tsunade would have been dead if it wasn't for Shizune jumping in to block a well-placed volley of kunai thrown by Kabuto. Shizune looked back at her master and sighed when she noticed the glazed-over look in her eyes. It seems like she was in this on her own for this one. Orochimaru's body finally came to a stop when it barreled through several trees before slamming into a particular thick oak. His body slowly fell to the ground in a seemingly boneless heap. That was almost on Tsunade's level of strength. If I hadn't reinforced my body, I would be a mist of blood. Seems little Naru-kun has improved greatly. Orochimaru thought to himself before slowly pulling himself to his feet without the use of his arms. His eyes slowly peered around the clearing that he found himself in. A path of fallen trees indicated which direction he had come from. He could feel Naruto's presence faintly but could not determine where exactly he was. Seems like little Naru-kun has improved. It's a little late but still a nice thing, Orochimaru hissed out snake-like, clearly trying to get a rise out of the boy. He felt a sharp spike of chakra from behind him before quickly diving right, avoiding a bolt of lightning that quickly came shooting out of the nearby tree. He found his back against an oak as he peered in the direction where the lightning bolt was fired from. Orochimaru's eyes widened in pain before looking down at his body. A metal spear was protruding through his chest right where his heart laid. The spike was covered in a sickly purple liquid. The expression on his face quickly morphed into one of mirth as his body took the texture of earth. He was revealed to be an earth clone as his body slowly fell to the ground as a pile of mud. The real Orochimaru rose up in the center of the clearing, a small smile tugging along the edge of his lips. His tongue slowly slithered out of his mouth as he once again began to examine the clearing. That almost got me only a second quicker and I could be stick kebab, he said. Orochimaru heard a growl from behind him before quickly performing a backflip. While in midair, he looked down and came eye to eye with his blonde-haired opponent. What intrigued him about the boy was the look that was in his eyes. Instead of rage and frustration, the boy held no emotion in his eyes. I will kill you, Orochimaru. Naruto growled out to the snake Sannin. The man only smiled before beckoning towards the boy with his tongue while in midair. As soon as the man landed, he was put on the defensive. Naruto turned his body and thrusted his hand towards the snake Sannin. A small burst of lightning chakra came shooting from his palms towards Orochimaru. The man was forced to bend his body to an inhuman degree to avoid the deadly blast of chakra. Naruto quickly recovered from his technique and launched his body towards Orochimaru. The man's tongue went rigid before shooting towards him. Naruto leapt from the ground and sent his body spinning in midair, avoiding the tongue by inches. The saliva-covered appendage attempted to wrap itself around the blonde-haired torpedo but was instantly shocked when it got within an inch of the boy. Naruto slammed headfirst into the Sannin, pushing him back several feet but not lifting him off his feet. The snake Sannin's neck extended and attempted to dig his teeth into Naruto's neck. But Naruto's chakra exploded out of him, causing sparks to shoot out from his skin. One of the sparks went shooting right into Orochimaru's gaping mouth, burning his throat immensely. His neck quickly drew back as he kicked away from the boy. He was given to reprieve however as Naruto immediately launched himself towards the Sannin. His body was covered in his lightning cloak while his eyes still held their emotionless look. Orochimaru was forced to dodge a wild assault by the boy, ducking under a wild swing only to be met by an uppercut that sent him sailing through the air. His body was sent through the air as he once again slammed into a tree. Him getting tired of playing around. Orochimaru finally yelled before throwing his head up towards the sky. Naruto saw the tip of a blade slowly began to pop out of Orochimaru's mouth. He quickly allowed even more chakra to pour out of him. Orochimaru's eyes widened when he felt Kusanagi vibrate in his throat. His surprise turned into pain when he felt the blade shoot out of his neck and towards his blonde-haired opponent. He felt blood quickly begin to fill his throat as the blade cut through several vital arteries and veins. Naruto caught the blade in his hands before quickly letting go of it. The metal blade lazily floated around him due to magnetic forces Naruto was putting. His emotionless eyes watched as Orochimaru seemed to regurgitate a new body from his damaged throat, completely void of any injuries. You dare to use my weapon against me? I am done playing with you, brat. Orochimaru all but yelled. He pricked his thumb with his larger-than-normal canine before going through a quick chain of hand signs. He then slammed his hand onto the ground, causing a massive seal array to appear under him. The massive cloud of smoke quickly filled his vision before a low-sounding hiss filled his ears. Orochimaru, why have you summoned me without the sacrifices? I should eat you where you stand. Naruto heard a loud voice hiss out. I have hundreds of sacrifices waiting for you back at my lab. But I need you to show this brat not to mess with my kind. Shouldn't be an issue for the great man to correct? Naruto heard Orochimaru's voice speak out. He heard a loud hiss in response. Don't try to use my pride against me, Ningen. If it wasn't for your sacrifices, I would treat you like I treat the rest of your kind. Now shut up and let me clean up your problems as I always do, Manda said in response. Naruto was instantly forced to jump as a giant snake head shot towards him. He threw his arm forward and watched as the cursed blade went shooting into the snake's mouth and out of its body. The beast let a sharp hiss before twisting its body and sending its tail shooting towards Naruto. He immediately raised his hand and grabbed the tail, enhancing his strength with his chakra greatly in the process. The strike pushed him back several feet but did not throw him off his feet. Naruto released a large roar before tensing his muscles and lifting Manda from the ground. His arms were emitting a bright blue light as he pumped lightning chakra through every muscle and nerve, boosting their capabilities to the max. Naruto released another roar before letting the snake go, sending him flying through the air, leaving him completely defenseless. Naruto immediately started to go through several hand signs before unleashing a technique that was inspired by one of Takigakura's most infamous missing nin. Lightning release, storm of lies, Naruto yelled before opening his mouth. Dozens upon dozens of spears made out of his signature lightning chakra came shooting out of his mouths. The spears quickly expanded in size, becoming as thick as Manda's midsection. The sky seemed to be bloated out by the number of spears flying through it. Manda stood no chance against the assault. His body was punctured by several of the electrically charged spears. His form erupted in a puff of smoke, indicating that the snake had returned to its summon realm. Naruto willed his chakra and allowed the spears to disperse in midair, raining down sparks on the area. Kabuto! It's time to flee. Naruto heard Orochimaru's voice rang from out the forest. Naruto growled before letting his lightning cloak intensify and shooting off towards the sound of his voice. Trees were mere obstacles to him as he barreled straight through them, intent on finding and killing the disabled snake Sanin. Every footstep sent a tremor through the earth. Unfortunately he was not quick enough. By the time he had arrived back at the original clearing, both Kabuto and Orochimaru were gone, leaving an exhausted Shizune and a still frozen Tsunade. Shizune looked like she was on her last leg, covered in sweats, cut and bruises. Her blood was splattered all across the field but she was currently healing herself. What intrigued and pissed Naruto off was the fact that Tsunade was still kneeling in the same position with the same glazed-over look in her eye. Not a single hair on head seemed to be different from the last time Naruto saw her while Shizune looked like she was about to pass out. Shizune immediately dropped into a defensive stance when she saw something flash in the corner of her eyes. She pivoted and held her Senbone launcher, ready to skewer whoever had managed to speed past her. She was filled with relief however when she saw the golden spiky mane of the blonde-haired shinobi that had went off to face Orochimaru. Her relief soon turned to horror when a loud smacking sound rang throughout the clearing. Tsunade was thrown off of her knees and onto her back. A small line of blood was slowly dripping down her nose. Naruto stood above her with his hand outstretched, covered in lightning chakra and small traces of blood. Did you just sit here and let your apprentice defend you without doing anything? Did you put her life in danger while you sat here and did nothing? Naruto yelled while taking a step towards Tsunade, hand ready to give her another smack. He stopped when he noticed that the blonde-haired Sanin was trembling. He looked at her eyes and saw that it was focused on his hand. His eyes quickly darted to his hand and saw the blood splattered across it. You can't be serious. Blood? That's what you're afraid? That's why you put your ward in danger? Because you froze up at the sight of blood? You're a medic nin, Naruto cried in outrage. Shizune stood to the side, half in shock and the other in anxiety, wondering where Naruto was taking this. She got her answer when she saw Naruto unseal a kunai and slash his palm. Blood instantly began to pour out of his hand and onto the ground. He moved his palm towards Tsunade and saw her trembling even more. He scoffed before taking his palm and pressing it against Tsunade's face. The blood smeared across her face, even getting into her mouth. Once Naruto was satisfied with the amount of blood on her face, he bent over and whispered into her ear. You are pathetic and aren't worthy to be Hokage. Orochimaru was right, you are a shame to the Senju name. You let your own weakness put the life of your comrades in danger. You are worse than trash, you are filth, Naruto said before returning to his full height and walking back towards the town. Jiraiya arrived only a full half a minute later to find a destroyed forest, a passed-out Shizune and a Tsunade with her face smeared in blood. When Jiraiya looked upon his scene he sighed, knowing that his apprentice had been some large role in all of this. That boy could never stay out of trouble. Naruto felt his muscles scream in protest as he slowly twisted the doorknob on his hotel room. The door swung open as the blonde-haired shinobi stepped inside it. He immediately slammed it closed and slowly trudged to his bed. He felt his legs finally give out as he landed face first into the bed. He placed his head into a pillow and let out a pain groan as the pain from his technique finally hit him. Even though stimulating his muscles with his lightning chakra granted him an immense amount of strength, it also strained his muscles and nerves to the breaking point. Lifting Manda and throwing him had required him pumping an insane amount of chakra through his body, and now he was paying the price. Naruto wanted to let out an even louder groan when he heard a soft knock at his door. He slowly pushed himself off of his bed and marched his way to the door. He swung it up, prepared to yell at whoever had interrupted his rest. The words died in his mouth when he saw who was standing on the opposite side of his doorway. The first of the duo was a young man with onyx eyes, and jet black hair that was pulled back with red elastic in a low ponytail which extended to his shoulder blades. Long, pronounced tear troughs lay under his eyes. The most frightening part was the blood-red Sharingan eyes staring back at him. The second of the duo was much more frightening. He was a very tall and a muscular shinobi. He had a distinctive shark-like appearance, complete with pale, green skin. He also has small, round, white eyes, gill-like facial markings under his eyes, and actual gills on his shoulders, and sharp triangular teeth. Strapped across his back was a giant sword, its blade wrapped in bandages. Naruto-kun, you need to come with us, the Sharingan wielder said. Naruto blinked rapidly at the two before a frown quickly came upon his face. Go fuck off. I don't have time for whatever product you want to sell to me, Naruto said before slamming the door in their faces. Itachi, did that just happen? The shark-like man said in shock. The Sharingan wielder blinked in surprise before his face returned to stoicism. Seems he wants to make this difficult, Itachi said before narrowing his eyes. The shark-like man grinned before placing his palm against the door. With a slight grunt, the door was sent flying off the hinges and into the room. The duo stepped into the room and to their disappointment, it was completely empty. Itachi sighed before scanning the room, noticing an open window. He motioned Kisame over but saw that the man was distracted by something. That fucking BR Kisame wasn't able to finish before the explosive tag blew up, completely decimating the room those two were in. Naruto hit the ground running, taking off towards the field where he last saw Tsunade and Shizune. His body was screaming in protest to every single movement he made, but he ignored it and kept going. He knew who those two were and he knew he was in no condition to even attempt to hold them off. He felt the ground shake and looked back to see a massive fireball shooting up into the air. He knew that his distraction would grant him a couple of seconds at the most but would not put down the 2S ranked missing nin. Please for the love of God let them still be there, Naruto said as he pumped more and more chakra into his body. He was a blur to the stunned civilians that were terrified at the explosion that took place only seconds ago. He could tell that his head start was quickly getting cut short. Naruto suddenly had to dodge to the side as a volley of kunai came crashing where he was standing only seconds ago. He jumped out of his role and saw Itachi and Kisame staring at them. The only thing indicating they had been in the center of an explosion was the slight amount of soot that was covering their forms. Those explosion tags was not a very smart move, Naruto-kun. We'll have to use force now, Itachi said as a wide grin split across Kisame's face. Naruto looked around and saw that the street the trio inhabited was completely empty. He cursed when he knew that he was not going to get any assistance anytime soon. Naruto allowed his chakra to spike to its maximum level, cracking the ground under him. A harsh wind was created by the force of Naruto's chakra on the environment. His skin was glowing a light blue as his lightning cloak covered his body in full force. He saw Itachi's and Kisame's eyebrows raise at the amount of chakra the boy was producing. "That's nearly as high as yours, Kisame, and he just got finished battling with a Sannin," Itachi said without a single emotion in his voice. Kisame grinned, revealing 2 rows of razor-sharp teeth. He grabbed the handle of sword and swung it, crashing its massive form against the ground. The bandages surrounding the blade started to slightly ripple as if the sword itself was alive. "Saimata is getting excited," Kisame said before hefting the sword onto his shoulder. He turned his head to Itachi and with a short nod, the man sent himself flying towards to the blonde-haired genin. Naruto barely was able to hold up his lightning spear in order to block the monstrously strong sword strike for one of the infamous 7 swordsmen of the mist. His feet were sent sliding back several feet as Kisame continued to put pressure on against Naruto's lightning rod. The man's grin played against Naruto's nerves as Kisame seemed to be actually taking pleasure in watch the young boy struggle. "Why does all the bad shit always happen to me?" Naruto groaned out in his head. He was just happy that Kurama remained silent during his endeavor. He did not feel like dealing with his insults as he fought for his life. Naruto knew that just from the first strike he would not be able to overpower the man. He quickly retracted his metal rod, causing the man to stumble forward slightly. Naruto quickly tried to take advantage of the man's unbalance by thrusting his metal rod towards the man's unprotected stomach. It turned out the man held a large amount of skill to back up that power as he quickly pivoted on his foot and sent his sword crashing down towards Naruto's weapon. Naruto was forced to let go of the metal spike as a jarring sensation was sent through his wrist at the force of the strike. He quickly jumped back before slamming his hands into the ground. The ground began to ripple and crack as large burst of lightning burst through it towards Kisame. The man was forced to jump away as massive burst of lightning chakra burst out from underneath him. "That attack held a little sting towards Uzumaki," Kisame said with a smirk on his face. The man tossed the sword into the air before beginning to go through a short chain of hand signs. He was forced to stop however when Naruto thrust his palm towards him and sent several short bursts of lightning chakra towards him. One managed to clip him on his left shoulder, forcing his leg back. The shark-like man looked at his shoulder and saw his cloak and skin was burnt. If possible, his grin grew to even greater lengths. "Stop playing around, Kisame, or I will be forced to interfere," Naruto heard Itachi said. The boy growled before unsealing several dozen kunai and sent them flying towards Kisame. The man grabbed his sword out of the air before spinning it like a windmill. The kunai bounced uselessly against the sword that seemed to actually be getting thicker now that Naruto had actually taken the time to look at it. "I see you finally noticed, brat. Saimata loves to feast on chakra and she loves the taste of yours. The more she eats the bigger she gets," Kisame said before disappearing from Naruto's sight. He was forced to perform a quick backflip as Saimata crashed into his previous position, cratering the ground under it. Naruto was not able to dodge the side slice Kisame sent his way. Naruto was forced to let out a short scream as he felt the skin that the sword impact against suddenly shred away. He looked down and saw that Saimata had managed to flay away its skin and muscle from the point of impact, exposing his bone. "Saimata doesn't cut or slice, she flays," Kisame yelled before beginning a brutal assault against Naruto with his sword. The tired and injured boy did a fantastic job dodging the swordsman's assault considering his state, but he was still slightly out of his league. By the time a full 5 minutes was over, a large amount of Naruto's skin and muscles had been flayed off, revealing a decent amount of bone. "The brat is on his last leg. I think this is enough," Kisame said as he hefted his sword onto his shoulder. Naruto stood in front of Kisame, panting and huffing in pain as he stared at the man. The boy growled before raising his hand, allowing the sleeves of his destroyed hoodie to fall to his shoulders. Kisame's heart almost froze in shock when he saw what seemed to be a sea of golden chains come shooting from his sleeves. His shocked state cost him as the numerous amounts of golden chains wrapped around his form and slammed him into the ground repeatedly. He was then flung through the air at high speeds for several miles until he was nothing but a speck in the sky. "That was unexpected," Itachi said while stepping towards the exhausted Naruto. The boy's legs gave out under him as he watched, defenseless, as the S-ranked missing nin approached him. His path was broken however when he was forced to jump backwards as a blonde comet crashed towards him. When the comet made contact, a giant crater was formed, spanning over 100 feet. "No harm shall come under the ninja of Konoha while I am Hokage," Naruto heard a voice said. He looked up and saw the back of the woman he had called pathetic just an hour earlier. He saw Itachi look the woman up and down before turning his eyes towards him. The man's lip twitched upward for a split second before returning to his normal stoicism. He quickly sighed before dispersing in a murder of crows. "Glad to see you're still alive," Naruto heard Jiraiya say from behind him. The blonde-haired boy groaned before falling flat on his back. "No thanks to you, so you managed to convince her?" Naruto said. Jiraiya shook his head before taking a seat beside Naruto. The perverted Sannin watched as his former teammate rushed over and began to heal his apprentice. "You did most of the work with that speech of yours. I just needed to give her a little push," Jiraiya said while a small grin. Naruto groaned as the healing chakra entered his system. "Good. Now I can get back home and sleep in my own fucking bed. Enough bullshit has happened on this trip to make me want to retire as a ninja." Jiraiya let out a short chuckle before rustling his hair. It was good to see the boy wasn't too affected by this fight. Naruto sighed as he pulled the hood over his head while closing the door behind himself. The pouring rain was pounding against the streets of Konoha, creating a very melancholy mood throughout the village. It had been several days since Jiraiya and Naruto had returned to Konoha with Tsunade. As soon as the woman took a step into the gate, she was rushed into office as Hokage. A lot of infighting between the two councils and the former Hokage advisors had taken place and a Hokage was needed to put a settle to it. Jiraiya had disappeared saying that he had several issues to take care of him and Shizune had willingly followed her master, leaving Naruto all alone. He was glad for this fact though as it gave him time to mourn the death of his grandfather figure. While the village was going to hold a mass ceremony for the man today, Naruto had spent the past few days mourning by himself. Many of tears had been in his wake as he relieved himself of the grief he had held and since the man had died. Today though he was mourning the death of someone he felt he had gotten much closer to in the past few months. His usual white hoodie was gray, highlighting his mood to the world as he walked through the abandoned streets of Konoha. During the journey with Jiraiya, he had managed to hold back most of his emotions but now he felt that he had no such luxury. His hood was the only thing blocking the world's view of the tears running down his face. Naruto made his way deep into one of the more heavily forested area of Konoha. He fought his way through the thick roots and weeds that littered the ground. He followed an unmarked and confusing path that would force even the most veteran trackers to lose his tracks several times over. Naruto finally arrived at his destination, a rather small clearing. The clearing was surrounded by trees and contained a small lake that was being fed by a small waterfall. Pressed up against the side of the lake was a small tombstone that was covered in slightly decayed flowers. Naruto walked himself over towards the tombstone and quickly swept the decaying flowers into the lake. He unsealed a new bouquet of flowers and placed them on the tombstone. Every single day I look back at the times we had and I regret each more and more. Because of me, you're dead. I have to live with that for the rest of my life." Naruto let out a depressed laugh at this. Rather fitting to be honest. It's a burden that I'm glad to carry for my actions. I just wish it didn't end with this. End with you dead. At this Naruto finally broke. Tears freely began to fall from his eyes as he laid his head on the ground before her headstone. "I miss you so much. Every single day I find harder and harder to move on. I see things, I see you in that apartment. I can still imagine your smile and your laugh. I sometimes forget to cook, thinking you're at home, preparing dinner for me. I'm falling apart, no one has noticed but I have. I can't last long. I need you back," Naruto said as tears fell from his eyes. He stayed in that hunched-over position for several minutes, letting his tears fall from his eyes freely. "So this is where you headed off to?" Naruto heard a voice said from behind him. Naruto instantly grabbed the unknown assailant by the throat before slamming them to the ground while holding his lightning rod to their eyes. When the tears finally cleared enough for him to actually see who he was holding, he was surprised to find the young Hyuga heiress in his grasp. "You have the gall to call me pathetic yet I find you crying your eyes out like a newborn? How befitting." The girl grunted out as the pressure around her neck increased. Naruto growled before channeling his lightning chakra into his weapons, making it glow a light blue. "You have no idea the pain I am going through." Naruto growled out while inching the metal rod closer to Hanabi's face. The girl's eyes narrowed before she released a growl of her own before bringing her feet under her and kicking Naruto in the chest. The blonde-haired boy was caught by surprise as he was thrown off of her. "You don't know what I have been through. You don't know how it truly feels to be the cause of someone's death. Your own mother's. I don't want to hear or see you cry because you don't know true pain. I was bathed in the blood of my mother the second I was born as she bled out over my newly born body. I have to live with that every single day and I walk with my head held up. And I will not allow the man who had the gall to call me pathetic and defeat me to sit and whine over a death. Hanabi all but screamed at the boy. Tears were now slowly streaming down her eyes as she panted. Naruto's eyes watched her for several seconds before he let out a long, drawn-out sigh. His legs seemed to collapse out under him as he laid flat on his back. Hanabi slowly trudged her way towards him before laying down directly next to each other. The two young Shinobis stared up at the sky, their eyes red from crying. "It hurts so badly," Naruto said out loud. Hanabi let out a short nod before holding her hand over her heart. "Don't worry, eventually you grow numb until you can't even feel the pain."
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.